Is it actually worth it to write a book yourself, or should you hire somebody to do it for you? Now, today I'm going to talk about specifically four major factors that influence and should influence your decision making when it comes to writing a book yourself. How much of the book should you actually write yourself? How many tasks that are involved in the book writing process should you actually perform? Or maybe you should delegate most of the things to professionals and people who are doing this on a day-to-day basis. Now, the first thing that you have to do is determine how much time is it going to take to write the book and other tasks that are involved in the writing process. And the second one is how much your time is actually worth. So you can be very strategic and calculated about this. So you can calculate, is it worth it, or should you hire help? Should you hire somebody else who is actually a professional in this? So let's paint a picture here. So let's say, for example, your time is worth around $50 per hour. I'm choosing 50 to make a simple math, but you can do the calculations yourself. Know that on average, it takes about 200 to 300 hours that you have to include in this book writing process. Sometimes it's more, it's almost never less than 200 hours. And now, assuming you really want to produce and write a very high quality book that is going to serve you for years and decades to come. Now, if that's you, that's where it's going to be, anywhere between 200 and 300 hours plus. So the math is pretty simple. You take $50 per hour and you multiply that by how many hours is it going to take. So $50, 200 hours at least, that's $10,000. Now, more often than not, it's going to be closer to $15,000 plus. So you really have to take that into consideration and look at your own work and look at how much time you'll have to dedicate and how much time you're going to lose somewhere else in your business, in your job, in your career. So once you make these calculations and you put everything on a piece of paper, then you start making really much more calculated and smart decisions about which option should you go after. Now, the second thing you really have to take into consideration is your writing skills. Now, I mentioned between 200 and 300 hours, but usually those 200 to 300 hours, it's not for a person who is completely new to writing. It's usually for an amateur person who is used to writing articles, who is used to writing as an exercise, right? So you really have at least some sort of ability to write on frequent and consistent basis. Now, if you are a complete beginner, you have never written more than 10 articles in your life, that number is going to be so much higher, especially if you have high expectations for your book. If you don't have a time to learn how to write, which is not in those between 200 and 300 hours, that's another major factor that you have to consider. Talking about the third thing, the major pieces when it comes to book writing phase: the outline, the first draft, the editing, the proofreading, and formatting. Now, the question is, how much help do you really need? What kind of skill sets do you have that is worth, again, going back to how much your time is really worth? Is it $30 an hour, $40 an hour, $50 an hour, $100 an hour? Make those calculations and then see which parts do you actually need help with. Now, from my experience at High Value Author, what we are doing, in the beginning, most people are unsure. Some of them think that, okay, maybe I should hire somebody, maybe I should or do the writing myself. I would say 96 to 97% of cases, it's much more effective to delegate almost everything besides revising and really adding a lot of meat and content that you're gonna provide to a professional in order to write that book and edit that book and proofread that book, format that book, all these important things, even in the outline that we talked about, instead of trying to write it yourself. Now, the caveat here is most people probably yourself included, if you're watching this video, you're thinking, maybe that book is not going to be that unique, maybe it's not going to be yours. Now, I'm going to talk about that more in the other video, but in most cases, there is almost nothing unique about your writing. There are a lot of things that are unique about you, about the way you're thinking, about the way you're communicating your ideas, your messages, the way your communication flows. You need that professional to put that in writing. It's not about your unique voice that you only can put from verbal and thinking and your mind into writing. It's actually so much easier because you're going to find out very quickly how difficult it is to translate that material in the other form. So in essence, I'm going to make another video on that, but do not think about that deeply, because there is nothing unique about your writing that the other professional, the true professional, cannot do better than you. Now, the fourth thing, I'm getting really biased here because this is what I learned. I cannot lie to you. I cannot say, but yes, go after, write it yourself, become a writer. Now, a disclaimer. If your goal is to become a professional writer, everything that I said before is completely irrelevant, because I'm talking to authors here. I'm not talking to writers. I'm talking to people who want to leverage their book and use that book for many purposes: legacy, impact, credibility, authority, client acquisition, building their brand, accelerating their brand, building their business, all these kind of great benefits. If that's you, everything that I mentioned really applies. If you want to become a professional writer, not just an author, everything that I said, you're going to find yourself in a completely different way there. And now the fourth thing that I want to mention is the cost of distraction. We talked about 200, 300 hours. We talked about how much your time is actually worth per hour, so you can do the calculations. But more often than not, it takes so much time thinking about transitioning into writing compared to everything else that you are consistently doing, your routine, your work routine, your daily routine. You really have to distract yourself for 4, 5, 6 hours in a row to produce something really high quality, assuming you have the skills to do it. So the cost of distraction usually adds about 20 to 25% to however many hours you're going to spend of actual writing, editing, and proofreading, and doing all these great things. Right? So at the end of this video, I want to ask you a question. Is it actually worth it for you to write the book yourself and do other important things that are involved in the writing process? Or should you hire somebody else and trust an expert to do it for you while you're doing other important things in your life, in your career, in your business? The answer to that, I think you already know. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got clarity. I hope you got a lot of value. And I hope you're going to take it with a grain of salt and you're going to make the right decision. Other than that, see you in the next video.